This is the Vacation Rental Success Podcast, keeping you up to date with news, views, information and resources on this rapidly changing short-term rental business. I'm your host, Heather Bayer, and with 25 years of experience in this industry, I'm making sure you know what's hot, what's not, what's new, and what will help make your business a success. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Success Podcast. This is your host, Heather Bayer, and as ever, I am super delighted to be back with you once again. So it's been a week since the VR Nation conference kicked off in Austin. Super event. Really, really good. It was the first time since VR Nation was formed out of the Northwest Vacation Rental Professionals Association that the conference has been held outside the Pacific Northwest. It brought together short-term rental professionals and vendors from across the US and notably Australia. It was lovely to see Julie George from the $1 Million Host as the MC. She did a fantastic job. And also met up with Rebecca Cribbin from Holiday Rental Experts, who I absolutely love. And they both brought that down under vibe, which was terrific. There was one minor mishap over the few days I was there. I took a 6 a.m. walk with Ali Camilletti from Spark Your Mindset, completely forgetting that 6 o'clock in the morning in Austin is not as bright and dawn-like as 6 o'clock in the morning in Ontario. So it was pitch black when we set off out on our walk in Austin. We went from the hotel, we went down to the water, and did a little bit of off-piste because we crossed over from one trail to another across the grass in the dark. And the next thing I know, I just face-planted in the grass because there was a pile of wire just lying around. And came out of it pretty much unscathed, a couple of scrapes and sadly maybe a broken little pinky finger. It's been a week and I still can't straighten the finger. I didn't get it seen to. I know. For those of you who said, go get that strapped up, and thank you to Alexis Miller of Cottage Connections for giving me a little bit of tape and an Advil. I really appreciated your go bag. It had everything in it, including tea bags, which was fantastic. And just to let you know, we will be having Alexis Miller on the podcast, and maybe she'll share some of the secrets of her go bag when she comes on. But anyway, that was just a minor little mishap. But we started the event by attending STR Nerds, which is a mastermind stroke workshop hosted by Steve Schwab. And we got to spend a day exploring the art of owner onboarding. It was the first Nerds event I've attended, and it was brilliant. Really, really good. When you have a day focused on just one topic, it's amazing how much creativity is unleashed. And then, of course, there's 2 days of networking and learning new stuff and meeting old friends and making new ones, usual conference-type stuff. And it was great. I loved it. I will be going to VR Nation again, for sure. So, talking of Steve, it was a monumental week for him. If you followed the roller coaster of events surrounding the merger of Casago and Vacasa, you'll know it wasn't without some drama. And thank you to Ashley Ching for bringing us all the news over the past few months on LinkedIn. It's kept everybody up to date. And I'm pleased to say it all ended well for Casago as the closing took place last Wednesday. And Steve woke up Thursday morning as the CEO of the largest property management company in North America. I have no idea how that would feel. Excitement, apprehension, fear. I don't know. I sat down with Steve for an hour one day last week, and he was definitely looking forward to it and has lots and lots of plans. So I am super excited to have Steve with me today. And in this episode, we're going beyond the headlines to hear directly from him about the journey that brought him here. From building Casago, from the early days in Mexico, to the respected name it now is, rooted in such strong values and owner relationships, to now taking the reins of Vacasa, which of course is a company that has faced its share of challenges and scrutiny along the way. So we're going to be talking about company culture, what owner-centric really means, and why he believes this moment is an opportunity to reset the direction of a brand that once led the industry. So if you've been wondering what's next for Vacasa or what it takes to lead with vision and heart in this business, you don't want to miss this conversation. So I'm delighted and I should say honoured to have some of Steve Schwab's time with me today to talk about leadership in this series we're doing on leadership. But of course, it is just such perfect timing that we're doing this series on leadership at the time that the Casago and Vacasa merger is taking place. And Steve is standing tall at the helm of those companies. So welcome, Steve. Thank you. Hi. So great to see you. We had a bit of time in Austin last week at VR Nation, and I've just been listening to you talking to David Angotti on his deck, and it's just so inspiring, but also quite unbelievable in ways. Does it still feel unbelievable to you?
It does. It feels kind of like a dream, and trying to get my head wrapped around all of it. Super excited about the whole, but yeah, it feels very surreal. So
I bet it does. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine how that must feel. I mean, Casago, you have built to, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, you have built to such a great standard and size, but that multiplying now, it must be daunting. And we just can't wait to see where this is all going. But I want to ask you to take us back to the beginning. The very beginning, 1996, Rocky Point, Mexico. What inspired you to get into the vacation rental business when you were down there on a break after university and your time in the Army Rangers?
Yeah.
Why would you get into vacation rentals?
It was an accident. And so I came down there and visited a few times. And after my senior year of college, headed down for the summer to take a break from everything. And I was just sitting at a bar. And there was a gentleman sitting there that he was talking about how he couldn't crawl up on a roof. He was a big guy. He was, 6'7", 300 pounds, just a massive man. And I was like, well, I can crawl up on the roof for you. I've done some sheet metal work. He was talking about fixing an air duct, a return duct. And I was like, I can do that for you. So next thing you know, I'm driving out to this community I've never been to, wondering what I've got myself into in my Jeep along the beach, and get a ladder, crawl up to the top and start taking metal screws and fixing the problems up on there, crawl back down. And he offers to pay me. Like, no, that's good. I don't need money from you. I didn't have any money anyways, but I didn't take it. And I really think that one act of kindness was the beginning of my career, because, he looked at me and smiled and I shook his hand, and he came and found me at the bar the next day. Same bar, same seat, and asked me to do a little more work, and then a little more work. And then he invited me over for dinner with him and his wife, Cindy. And so I do odd jobs for them, and I was continuing to do other work, but helping them out, with maintenance items. And I knew he wasn't well, and come to find out it was cancer. And it took him pretty quickly. And maybe about a month or two later after he passed, Cindy calls me, just talking about, hey, Bruce had passed. And it's like, I know, Cindy, I feel terrible. She says, well, Bruce thought you'd be pretty good at this. It's like, oh, I don't want to be maintenance full time for the rest. I was like, that's not really what I mean, I helped out, but I'm not that good at maintenance. It's just like, no, dummy. Actually owning the business. You thought you'd be really good at this business. I go, gosh, I'm even less qualified for that. I was like, so I went over and looked at the numbers. It was all on paper, and went through the entire process. And she'd made $35,000 the year before. I was like, that's more money than I ever made my entire life. And yeah, January 1st, 2001 was my official date of being actually in the business. So she's had the business since 1996. I've been visiting since 1996, but I took over as the owner of a company as a 28-year-old man, 2001.
Wow. I love that story. I talk to founders of companies all the time on this podcast. And that's always the question I ask, how did you get into this business? But yours is one of the best stories. from fixing an AC unit to where you are now is quite astonishing. And we don't have the time in this short period to go through everything that happened over the next 20 odd years, 24 years. But give us a couple of the real turning points that happened over that 20 years. The times that went, oh my gosh, that has really made a vast difference in the way we do things or in the way people see us. Give us some of those highlights.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of them started before I got into business, being part of the Ranger Battalion and a fraternity. They both had these creeds, and I didn't understand how valuable they were at the time, but they were certainly in my head. I'd memorized them both and was to be part of those groups. That fed in. And then also a moment with a fraternity brother of mine named Tito. We were trying to raise money. We were going to lose our house, so we had to raise money to pay it off. And I was organizing one of the fundraisers in college, and I was like, I was doing the military thing. We got to go. We got to do this. You need to get up. I don't care if you have a hangover. And he looked at me. He's like, Schwabi, make me want to go. Don't make me have to go. And that was a big turning point in my leadership, coming from a highly disciplined Ranger regiment where everything is command driven to now we're talking about how do we motivate somebody. And that has stuck with me my whole life. So as I've gone forward, on the day that Saddam Hussein was captured, my main competitor in town, who was not doing a great job, left with everybody's money, all of the trust funds, all of the paychecks, just gone. And they were actually driving to the border when I crossed the border going south. And we suddenly quadrupled in size. And I had this small team, and suddenly I was in resorts and we were hiring faster than I could meet people. And the company wasn't doing what it was doing the day before. And my ability to lead people and speak into them about what our mission is, how we do things, was not scaling, and I was failing. And I sat down, was wondering why I was failing, and I could, I could lead in these situations with young men and with guns, or, young men with beer, and I was failing here. It came down to that we had something that really held us together, that bonded us together, and it was these credos. It was this ideology, and it was these principles. And so I started writing down these ideologies and these principles about how we should be doing business, and it turned into ORANGE Credo. And that has really been foundational to how we scale, and how I believe that being able to speak into our teammates and let them speak to each other about that, and grow a culture of how they even communicate with each other and have these social norms is so valuable. So that was a massive turning point for me. You go a few years later, and I started to have the opportunities to go to other cities, and I thought I was smarter than I was. And so I was like, man, I've got this figured out. I'm going to go to San Carlos and do exactly what I'm doing here in Rocky Point. And I went to rubber stamp what I was doing, and I got punched in the nose. Like, I was not doing well with it, and I was losing properties. I thought that, why isn't this working? And then I went and lived in San Carlos for a month and realized the entire social fabric is different. The expectations of the homeowners are completely different. The guests are coming for different reasons. These properties need to be maintained with a different mindset. And I suddenly understood that this is not a rubber stamp business of widgets. This is a relationship by relationship business, person by person's business, and every single market has a very different expectation. And when you dance with the devil, you dance the devil's dance. They don't dance yours. And so when you show up into a new city, you better understand exactly what's going on. And that's really hard to scale. And I wasn't, I'd done this in a few cities at some point and realized I can't keep up with what everybody wants in these different cities. So I read an article about this young man who had was working for an ink company, and he brought all these beautiful colors and all this new designs, and the ink company of old men, shoot him off. So he wanted to start his own ink company, and he became so successful that they had to go buy his ink company before he ran them out of business. And I was like, this is the problem I'm going to have by building fantastic property managers. Anybody who has some ambition will eventually do it themselves. How do I get to be a part of that? And so that was the beginnings of finding fantastic people, bringing them in as partners in the other cities. And when they got their own skin in the game, the cities blossomed. And that was the beginning of this franchise model, understanding that you can really only be a local in one place to be truly, elbows deep into the mud and the muck and understanding exactly, what you're dealing with. You have to be local. You have to be living local. You have to have a responsibility to your neighbors, and you have to be able to have conversations that you don't think you're learning anything, but suddenly you have context to how to operate. And so that was a big part of this. That was another big turning point. And then just at a VRMA exec, I was sitting with two guys that were very chatty, and we went outside and we were standing there, and I was like, I've got this idea. It's like, I take on other cities and give people equity. What if I could turn into a franchise model and help you guys with enterprise tools I have and do it at a price that's equal to or less than what you pay for it, but help you with efficiencies, training, processes, give you the type of resources to compete against somebody like that. And they looked at each other, looked at me, and said, yeah. And over the course of a couple of conversations, they both ended up becoming franchisees and are both with the organization today. And it all took off from there. So that's where the franchise model came from.
I want to step back into this whole company culture and how this has become the cornerstone of your approach. How do you share that culture with your teams and have them buy into it? And I heard from a recording you made earlier on when you initially broached this with your team down in Rocky Point, and one of your teammates said, this, she called it this stupid book that you're asking everybody to carry around and work from. So in every instance where they had a connection with somebody, that they were to use these standards to drive those better relationships with people. Can we just come back to that and how that developed and people bought into it?
Yeah, but they didn't buy into it right away. It took some convincing, and people like, this feels very cult-like. This feels weird. What are we doing? Yeah, I showed up with this box of the original Orange Credos and told Erica, who's been with me now for 24 of the 25 years, and is like a sister to me and speaks very truthfully to me. I gave these Erica, I was like, I want you to use to everybody. Everybody needs to carry these around with them. And I want you to have a stand-up meeting and talk about this with everybody every single day. And she looked at it, she read through it. She's like, you're going to make all the employees carry a book with a picture of you in it and talk about it every single day. She's like, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my entire life. She's like, people are going to hate you for this. And she's like, this is not a cult. This is not a religious cult. You cannot do that. I was like, just please. And so we bantered back and forth, and she was adamantly against this and made sure to let me know that she did it. She complied. And that's really the beginning of bringing somebody along with leadership. First it's compliance, right? And, you kind of talk them into it and they go along with it. And so we started doing it, and it did feel awkward at first. It felt awkward. Even for me, it felt awkward. And I would say about 6 months into it, I was getting a lot of pushback, and, people, different pockets, and people quit over it. We had a couple of employees quit over this, and and make sure to let me know how stupid they thought it was. And about 6 months in, it's the middle of summer in Sonora, and I walk in and I'm just sweating, and I sit down on her couch. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And she's like, I need to tell you something. And that's how Erica always starts off when there's bad news. I'm like, uh-oh, what is it? She's like, man, I hate to tell you this. I'm like, what is it? And she said, it's working. I'm like, what's working? And she's like, that stupid little book. It's working. She's like, I was walking down the stairs, and if you know our headquarters office, like you go down these stairs, and to the right of it, there's kind of a blind corner, and there is this, what we call the bullpen, which is where all the reservations happen. And she's like, I walk down and I'm about to turn the corner and I hear the two reservationists talking about how do they get into, or how do they start making this decision around how to take care of this guest. And they pull out the orange book and they start talking about the orange book and they make a really good decision. And she's like, they didn't know I was there. And she's like, I was a little bit angry about it because I'm being proven wrong. And then she goes, just like as if you set it up, Steve. I go down to a meeting, an all hands meeting with all of our housekeeping, and we have our meeting. And over the corner, I see a group of housekeepers talking. Walk over to them, and they got the orange books out after the normal orange meeting, and they're talking about how to take care of guests and cleanings and stuff like this. And they're reading from it. You know, we have it in Spanish, and they're going through it. And it's like they were talking about how to take care of their guests. It's like it's working. And she goes, I hate to tell you this. I hate to admit I was wrong, but it's working. And that's when she went from compliance to conviction because she saw that it was working. And that stupid little book has been transformational in the way that we make decisions in the absence of leadership, which helps the company's reputation grow. Because the truth is, you know, I think there's 10,000 decisions being made at work every day by every single person. How many of those decisions do people not know how to decide whether it's a good decision or a bad decision? And when you put principles in front of people, they understand how to measure and frame their decisions as to what is expected and what's not expected. And the truth is, if you read our Orange Credo, there's nothing magic about it. There's no sort of special super secret sauce about it. It's a collection of how we want to do business, how we think about the different stakeholders, how we're going to treat each other, how we're going to treat our homeowners, how we think about our guests, how we think about the standard in which we believe that we should be operating in very plain terms, but talking about it every single day at stand-up meetings and their own takes on it. And not just like some raw thing. We talk about where we fail and where we messed up and where we have to do better. And it's a reminder, even to me, it's a reminder to especially me about what our standards are and how we need to be thinking about items. In fact, there's this really great story. Spencer Farnsworth, who has been with us for 12 or 13 years now, years ago, I was really frustrated with the gentleman who we bought his property management company, and he had misrepresented some of the trust accounts and had done a few things that were not on the up and up. And I was mad. So I spouted off in the office, you know, what I was going to do about it. And you know, he took me into the back room, into the warehouse, and took me to the woodshed. And is like, that's not what you taught us to do. That's not what the Orange Credo says. He's like, if you start acting like that, you know, you are not acting the way that you've told me to act, and I will quit. He's like, I expect better from you. And I mean, he laid into me good. And I looked at him, and I'm like, that is the best thing that could have ever happened to me today. The fact is, we've been talking about it and expecting this from so long that he was willing to go to his boss and hold me accountable the way that we all need to be held accountable, because the book is for me too. Mm-hmm. And it was a real win that day because the team will come and challenge me if they think I'm out of line too. And that's what our bill culture is, you know. So it was really a good day.
How does this scale, Steve, with Vacasa? And I mean, you talked about the Rocky Point management crisis where you passed that little convoy of vehicles heading out of Rocky Point as you were heading in, and overnight you grew 4 times. Well, yeah. Overnight last week you grew 8 times.
Yeah,
my math is not great, but no, I think it's about that. So how? I mean, I love the culture. I have been known to carry the Orange Book around with me. It came with me to Austin last week, and I do refer to it, even though I'm not a property management CEO, property management company CEO anymore, but it's still relevant. It's a sort of almost a book for life as well, particularly in terms of relationships. But how do you go to this amount of scaling and take this culture? I mean, do you have the time for people to take weeks to figure out that, oh gosh, this works. And what happens in that interim? Because you've got a lot of owners out there a huge amount of owners out there who may be considering now, this is a bit of a turning point for me. I'm at a decision point. Yeah. How do you use this culture to convince them to stay?
Well, there's no magic bullet, full stop. And it is my job to do the work to convince all my new teammates that this is the right way to go. And this is to get them to the conviction point from, and away from the compliance point. And that's going to take hard work. And I'm going to have to talk to them. I'm going to have to meet them. And I think, some of what we're doing is we're getting ready to send out the orange books to everybody, but that's not going to change the culture. The booklet itself doesn't change the culture. It's the conversations and the stand-ups. It's them seeing that I'm promoting it, that I'm practicing it, and they're going to have to see what I'm permitting. And, that's how we have to lead with this. Thing that we're doing that's different now as we go into this is we have designed an orange book for our homeowners, explaining our Orange Credo to them about how we hold ourselves accountable and what they should expect from us, and asking them to hold us accountable to these Orange Credo's principles. And the best way to keep a culture is to share a culture, because when you tell everybody else what to expect from you, they're going to turn around and hold you accountable to what you said. So making sure that we're sharing our culture openly and richly with all the stakeholders is step one. It goes back to Tito from my fraternity days. I'm going to have to convince them that they want to come along, not that they have to come along with the culture. And they're going to have to see, like Erica, that you may comply at first, but when you see it's actually working, you'll start to have conviction over it. And it's going to be a lot of hard work. And it's my responsibility to go there.
Yeah, because you've built a team known for its loyalty and connection. When I haven't been involved for that long, but every time I see people, it's a very cohesive team. So apart from owners, you've got these thousands of people who are involved. And I think sort of going along from what you've just said, how do you scale that kind of cohesion across all the teams? And they're very different teams in different places. As you said, when you went to San Carlos, it was a very different location. Difference in operations, difference in marketing, difference in incoming guest style. So with these different markets, how do you address that?
The franchise model helps address a lot of that. When you get somebody who's locally owned and operated, who's on the ground with them, who actually has stewardship over the relationship with the homeowners, with the guests, but also stewardship with the teammates. There's somebody who actually knows them personally and cares about them and can take the principles we have, apply it to their own wants and needs of that market, and make sure to apply it properly in the way that they see fit. That's how you scale this. And the truth is, it's going to be a lot of hard work. But when I have gone out and met the people who are at Vacasa, there's some really, really good people there. People who truly love the industry, love their homeowners. And I think they've caught in a cycle that was built for tech, as a tech play, instead of built as a relationship play, as a relationship business. And being able to hand them the tools and put them into an ecosystem that allows them to run a relationship business and a hospitality business and a service business, where they can make decisions on the ground, where they can take care of their homeowners, where you don't have to call another city and talk to somebody about a statement who's never ever seen your property, or a work order of somebody who doesn't know you or is responsible for your happiness. I think those sort of movements and changes to the environment and pushing them towards this locally owned and operated business is going to be critical to how we do this. And the truth is, Vacasa was moving in that direction. This accelerates it dramatically. I think that also when you look at our team, and the truth is we have 86 people who have been with us for more than 10 years. 60 of them have been with us more than 15. We have people who have been with us from the very beginning. We just released an article of one of the housekeepers that have been with us since the very beginning. We've had 2 housekeepers buried in uniform. You start looking at who we have today on the team, and the new teammates. The best thing that I think we can do is introduce our new teammates to the teammates already here and have faith that the culture is going to bleed into the rest of the community, but intentionally, because the truth is, Heather, every single day is a battle for the culture of your business. Mm-hmm. There is somebody in the business or outside the business that is looking to put their own culture into it, whether they intentionally or unintentionally, a complaining teammate that's spreading poison or whatever it is. It's a battle between you and them, and you're pitted against them every single day. And you better be intentional. You better understand what you want out of your culture. You better be practicing it. You better be promoting it. You better understand what you'll permit, what you won't permit. Because if you're not doing that intentionally, you'll lose that fight and you'll lose that battle. And you need to be stone cold, dead serious about what you expect and what you'll permit and what your expectations are, and understand that your culture is not just warm and fuzzy. You know, we talk about being owner centric. That feels great. It talks about making the best decisions based on the homeowner's needs. It talks about, the owner is my personal guest, but this is also an immune system to those who do not fit within the culture. And I will tell you that when I see the people who are our teammates, our new teammates coming in, I see a lot of really great people who are going to fit in fantastically and really love this and are excited to be part of this. But it's still my job to convince them to do the Tito effect, to want to come, not to have to come along on this culture ride.
I think you put that really well, and it's something that we don't often hear when people talk about culture. It is sort of warm and fuzzy and everybody's singing along, same hymn sheet, etc. But I love to hear how intentional you are about those that don't, and that it's not something that is going to that would be tolerated, and that's the way to lead from within such a strong culture. So I'm so looking forward to seeing what's coming ahead. But I want to just pick on this the owner-centric side of it, because this is really what has driven Casago, is being so owner-focused. How would you put this in terms of, new franchise owners, people who are coming into the business to run a franchise? How do you share that type of concept with them, that you are so owner-centric? And the owners generally are pretty much right. Unless, of course, they and you do say as well that there are times when owners aren't right, and they just are not.
There are times
they're not right to be staying with the company.
Yeah. I mean, if you really think about our homeowners, they're the product owners of what we service, and they have to fit within the culture too. I had a homeowner who signed up, and we talked about owner centric, and he was super excited about this owner centric thing. Well, he has an air conditioner go out literally 6 weeks into our relationship with him. And it's Phoenix. And it's hey, we got to get this air conditioner replaced. He's like, no, just let him go somewhere else. You have to get this fixed. Why would you lose the money? He's like, well, I'm not going to lose the money. Well, what do you mean you're not going to lose the money? He's like, they're here for 2 weeks and they're, 3 days in the stay. He's like, well, you're not giving the money back. I'm like, well, of course I'm going to give him the rest of the money back. He's like, well, that's not owner-centric. We're like, whoa. Let's have a discussion about what owner-centric means. That doesn't mean that we treat other people unfairly. That means that we're making the best decisions, on your behalf and being your advocate. And how would we treat this? But the truth is, if I don't treat these guests well on your behalf, then I'm not doing what's right for you. And if you think that cheating people out of their money is a good practice, then we're not a good fit for you. And we ended up parting ways. And we give the guests their money back, because that's not fair. And I told them, the fact that you won't fix this we can't get this air conditioner compressor fixed same day because you're holding us back, tells me that we're not a good fit, because homeowners need to be aligned with you. Otherwise, you've got a broken company. The integrity of the business structure is broken when you have homeowners who you're afraid to have honest and good conversations with and don't align with your values and your principles and your morals and your business practices.
I love that. Hey, Steve, what is the toughest part of what's ahead? And what are you leaning on to meet that challenge? I know you have a ton of personal qualities and certainly experiences, but it's not going to be an easy ride.
No, it's not. And the truth is, we've built a great team of incredibly talented men and women that's going to be where I lean on. Joseph Riley, who's one of the most brilliant minds I've ever run across, incredibly tenacious. John Banzak, probably the most sophisticated operations guy in the industry, also brilliant. When you think of Anand, who's our new CFO, coming from the Hilton Group and understanding franchises, Luke Brennan, who is our chief of finance. He's super intelligent, able to pivot and have great conversations. Katrina Wakefield, one of the best property managers I'd ever met, who's come through our ranks and is now taking a lead role in this. I hate to mention names because I know I'm leading people. Carlos Corzo, CTO, built Streamline on shoestrings and all the way through a made successful exit with that business. I'm missing names, but there's an incredibly talented group of people who are true believers in what we're doing and making sure that we fulfill the mission of being a good steward of our teammates, of our homeowners, of our guests, of the assets that we need to manage, of everything that the entire, of our culture. That's going to be where we find our success, is through those people.
You've been through a lot over the last 24 years, lots of ups and downs and triumphs, tribulations, etc.
Yeah.
Look ahead to 5 years from now. What are you seeing in that crystal ball?
My hope and the plan is that we have built a company of locally owned and operated businesses that has a very diverse portfolio of not just properties, but homeowners, of teammates, of the different types of franchise partners that we have, from incredibly sophisticated to very local mom and pop style, loving on people, with the right personalities for the right fits. And they all get to have this community in which they get to share ideas and conversations. And our reputation is that there are people who are true short-term rental nerds who love what they do, love the people they serve, and will do the right thing by you. And even if things go wrong, they're going to take care of you. And if we focus on that, growth will take care of itself because people will want to be part of this. Will there be growth? I hope so. But for today, right now, focus on the quality of the relationship, one relationship at a time. And the rest isn't nearly as hard.
Yeah, I think relationships began to go, or the focus on relationships began to go out of our business a while ago. And you see it in sort of nuanced ways and across LinkedIn, and you think, people are not focusing on the right things anymore. They're focusing on the pickleball courts and the murals, but you're bringing this back to the relationships that are at the core of this industry, and I thank you for that. I think a lot of people thank you for that. I've seen a lot of messages around on LinkedIn saying that this is almost revolutionary and it's a long time coming. So, Steve, thank you for doing what you've done. Listening, I love to hear that, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the conversation that you had with David Angotti, because that really charts the very beginning when you called him and said, "Is this, what are the chances of this?" And he said, "I think you're mad."
Yeah.
And that.
He said, "Are you crazy?"
For those of you listening, just go and listen to that as well, because it's sort of a different side of the story. This is Steve sitting down with a very old friend and having this, a real conversation on where this all started with Vacasa. So go listen to that. Follow anything on Casago, Vacasa on LinkedIn, because you'll hear the story as it goes. And this is not a story that's stopping, I don't think. So, Steve, I thank you for what you're doing for the industry, for all of your team. You've introduced me back to what culture really is. And it's been huge for me. I know from sitting down in that room last week, and you just talked about STR Nerds. Well, that's the title of the brainstorming.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're both having a hard time with that word. Mastermind.
Mastermind. That was it. I knew it had mind in it somewhere.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah. So the mastermind stroke workshop that you did in Austin was absolutely terrific. I think the more people that come back to this whole business of relationships in this industry, the better. But thank you.
Thank you. I hope to do a good job for the whole industry and be a good steward of what I've been given, and I hope I can honor all the goodwill that the industry's given me. I'm going to do my very, very best for everybody.
Well, thank you for joining me. Well, I hope you found that conversation with Steve as inspiring and thought-provoking as I did. His perspective on leadership, culture, and what it really means to serve property owners in this industry could not be more timely. And wherever you are in the business, whether you're a solo host, maybe you're a growing property management company, part of a larger team, maybe you're even thinking about a franchise. There's a lot to take away from how Steve is approaching this massive transition. As always, we'll be following the journey closely and continuing the conversation, because what happens at the top of our industry ripples all the way through. So if you've got thoughts on this episode, I'd love to hear them. Connect with us on social and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. It's been a pleasure as ever being with you. If there's anything you'd like to comment on, then join the conversation on the show notes for the episode at vacationrentalformula.com. We'd love to hear from you, and I look forward to being with you again next week.